Hi, I'm Joanna Klicka, and I'm going to be talking about inferiority feelings and how they lead to superiority and inferiority complexes. The idea of inferiority feelings was proposed by Alfred Adler, who was born on February 7th in 1870. Growing up, he had several siblings. They were all pretty happy, healthy children, where he, on the other hand, was pretty sickly throughout his childhood. Because of this, he got a lot of extra attention and praise from his mother up until the point where his younger brother was born, at which point she switched her attention to the younger brother. His father, on the other hand, always had pretty high expectations for Alfred, and so he was constantly trying to live up to those expectations throughout his life. Between his mother and his father and his constant need to compete with his older brother, we can see where inferiority became a big focus in his personality theory, at least on a personal level. On a more scientific level, Adler developed the concept of inferiority feelings based on his study of inferiority or organ inferiority and compensation. And this is when individuals have to compensate for physical disabilities. And Adler believed that an individual's attitude towards their disability determined if they compensated for it in a satisfactory manner. So if an individual had a more positive attitude where they used their disability as motivation to still succeed, he thought that that was a satisfactory way of coping. Whereas if an individual had a more negative attitude where they claimed, well, I would have been successful if it weren't for this, that they were coping in an unsatisfactory manner. He basically just took this idea and these attitudes and applied it to psychology and developed the concept of inferiority feelings. So, what are inferiority feelings? Inferiority feelings are feelings of weakness and dependency that all humans experience, and these feelings start in infancy and then they kind of fluctuate throughout someone's life. Adler claimed that these are the motivating factors behind behavior. They are what drives people to improve themselves, to grow, and to overcome obstacles. So there are a couple different ways to cope with these feelings, especially since Adler claimed that a lot of people try to hide their inferiority feelings because it's kind of shameful within society to feel that way, or they were just not consciously aware that they had these feelings, so they still existed. An individual just might not know that they have them. So a well-adjusted individual copes with inferiority feelings by becoming integrated in society, and so they interact with other people and they learn to care about them and for them, and that's how they develop their sense of self-worth. So that's the more positive response to inferiority feelings. But on the other end, if you have a negative response to your inferiority feelings, you could develop a superiority complex or an inferiority complex. So first up is the superiority complex, and this is when an individual overcompensates for their inferiority feelings by attempting to appear superior to those around them. And so this is your pretty stereotypical definition of what a superiority complex is. And so this individual could appear to be someone who's very arrogant, domineering, vain, but really this is just a persona or a mask that they put on. It really all stems from their inferiority feelings. A lot of times people feel that their ego is threatened, and that's why they respond in this way, and that's why they create this persona. And so what we see from the outside isn't really what they're feeling on the inside. And then another way that this could be shown, like through someone's personality, is if they are overly charitable or generous. So we talked about how a well-adjusted individual goes out in society and they learn to care about their community. Someone with a superiority complex has really bad inferiority feelings, and so to prove to themselves and others that they pretty much don't, or they're trying to prove or appear as if they don't have these feelings, they go in the extreme, and so they might try and that's where the overcompensation is. So they are overly generous or they're overly charitable, and they do things to the extreme. On the other hand, you have your inferiority complex, and this is when an individual fails to compensate for their inferiority feelings in an appropriate manner. So your inferiority feelings are supposed to motivate you to grow and improve and overcome obstacles. But when an individual has an inferiority complex, they feel that they can't measure up to society standards, and so they don't cope in the best way, and so they don't succeed at doing these things. And they avoid situations where they feel that they might fail because they already feel inferior. But since they don't do the things that is claimed that you would cope for your inferiority feelings, like the integrating in society, and that's where you develop your self-worth. Since they avoid these situations and they avoid competition, they don't really have the chance to develop this self-worth, and so they're kind of stuck in this sense of inferiority. And so the key points from all of this are basically just that everybody has inferiority feelings. They're experienced by everybody, and there are just different ways of coping with them. So if you respond positively, you end up being more well-adjusted, and you go out in society and you develop your sense of self-worth. Whereas if you have a superiority complex, you have inferiority feelings and you overcompensate for them, or you develop an inferiority complex where you pretty much undercompensate, or you don't compensate at all for these feelings. And here is my works cited page, but I just wanted to end by talking about why I chose this topic for my presentation. And basically, I just thought it was an interesting perception on motivation, really, because me personally, I don't feel that that what motivates my behavior is a feeling of inferiority. So I just thought it was a really interesting way of looking at things, and isn't necessarily what a lot of other theorists talked about. And so I thought it would just be interesting to look at something that's a little bit different and see if there's anything even just relatable in there. So thank you.